Welcome back to Jolie's, where you can get spicy sausage, roasted nuts, and the freshest React content on YouTube. Today, I'm going to be looking at a JRE clip called Joe Rogan Shocked, De-Banking, a Hidden Menace. So, I just wanted to cover some Joe Rogan Experience because my friend is a big fan of the show and I never watch it, so I figured this would be very fresh. I also have heard that the Democrats are looking for the Joe Rogan on the left, and hey, might as well, be ready for that tryout when it comes around. Got to learn a little bit about what the man's doing. So why don't we go ahead and get into it?
De-banking is when you as either a person or your company are literally kicked out of the banking system.
Like they did to Kanye.
Oh, exactly, like they did to Kanye. My partner Ben's father has been debanked.
Really?
We had an employee who
For what?
For having the wrong politics.
Wow. That must have been a powerful guy for them to go after him. But then again, I mean, it might not be that hard for them just to flip a switch. I mean, you have to remember, the people who truly are in power are the ones who have control of our money. So, Visa, MasterCard hold a lot of power.
For saying unacceptable things. Under current banking regulations, here's a great thing. Under current banking regulations, after all the reforms of the last 20 years, there's now a category called a politically exposed person, PEP. And if you are a PEP, you are required.
Heaven forbid you get put into an acronym. It's like the best or worst thing that can happen to you in your life is getting acronymed
By financial regulators to kick them off of to kick them out of your bank.
What?
You're not allowed to
what
have
if you're politically on the left?
Well, that's fine.
No,
because
really?
they're not politically exposed.
So no one on the left gets debanked?
I have not heard of a single instance of anybody on the left getting debanked.
Can you tell me what the person?
I would say check that. I'm sure that there's been somebody on the left, but
did what they said that got them debanked?
Oh, well, I mean, David Horowitz is a right wing, he's pro-Trump. I mean, he said all kinds of things. He's been very anti-Islamic terrorism. He's been very worried about migration, all these things.
And they debanked him for that.
Yeah, they debanked him. So you get kicked out of your bank account. You get kicked out of you can't do credit card transactions. But, by the way, you can't
How is that legal?
Well, exactly. So this is the thing. And then you go in this thing of this is where the government and the companies get intertwined. Back to your
Sorry, Joe, but how is this legal? I mean, it's the ultimate form of power. It's cutting off people's access to money. It's legal because it's a weapon that can be used.
Fascism point, which is there's a constitutional amendment that says the government can't restrict your speech, but there's no constitutional amendment that says the government can't debank you, right? And so if they can't do the one thing, they do the other thing, and then they don't have to debank you. They just have to put pressure on the private company banks to do it, and then the private company banks do it because they're expected to. But the government gets to say we didn't do it. It was the private company that did it, and of course J.P. Morgan can decide who they want to have as customers, of course, right? Because they're a private company, and so it's this sleight of hand that happens. It's a privatized sanctions regime that lets bureaucrats do to American citizens the same thing that we do to Iran.
Whoa.
Just kick you out of the financial system. And so this has been happening to all the crypto entrepreneurs in the last 4 years. This has been happening to a lot of the fintech entrepreneurs, anybody trying to start any kind of new banking service, because they're trying to protect the big banks. And then this has been happening, by the way, also in legal fields of economic activity that they don't like. And so a lot of this started about 15 years ago with this thing called Operation Choke Point, where they decided to, as marijuana started to become legal, as prostitution started to become legal, and then guns, which there's always a fight about.
Heaven forbid those things become legal and accessible. I mean, yeah, that's the three big no-nos, especially American puritanic world.
Under the Obama administration, they started to debank legal marijuana businesses, escort businesses, and then gun shops, just like your gun manufacturers, and just like you're done, you're out of the banking system. And so if you're running a medical marijuana dispensary in 2012, guess what? You're doing your business all in cash because you literally can't get a bank account. You can't get a Visa terminal. You can't process transactions. You can't do payroll. You can't do direct deposit. You can't get insurance. None of that stuff you've been sanctioned, right? None of that stuff is available. And then this.
It also seems like a great way of keeping small businesses small. You're not going to be able to go worldwide with your business if you're only able to operate in cash.
administration extended that concept to apply it to tech founders, crypto founders, and then just generally political opponents. So, yeah, so that's been like super pernicious.
I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, 100%. And this is called, so it was Operation Choke Point 1.0 was 15 years ago against the pot and the guns. Choke Point 2.0 is primarily against their political enemies and then to their disfavored tech startups. And it's hit the tech world like we've had like 30 founders debanked in the last 4 years.
Really?
Yeah. It's been a big recurring pattern.
30.
This is one of the reasons why we ended up supporting Trump. It's like we can't live in this world. We can't live in a world where somebody starts a company that's a completely legal thing and then they literally like get sanctioned, right, and embargoed by the United States government through a completely unaccountable, by the way, no due process. None of this is written down. There's no rules. There's no court. There's no decision process. There's no appeal.
This is why even though I'm an anti-establishment person in general, there are certain institutions or, things that you need to do business or live your life that I feel like need to be held accountable to a higher power, like a government, or at least a what is the term I'm looking for here? A just government. I mean, I think the word just was a very favored one by the founding fathers. I'm not saying I'm a humongous supporter of those guys, and I have my criticisms, but they definitely believed in justice and these due processes. I mean, it's really baked into our Constitution. And how would they have foreseen a world where financial transactions were handled like electronically? That you could offer a product in New York City that could be bought in like Delaware or California. The idea of like this international or transnational commerce would have been foreign to them for the most part. I mean, the way that they would have done it was very slow and methodical. So, like the world moves at the speed of light, and our Constitution was written for something that moved, a world that moved at the speed of horses, basically.
You appeal to, right? Like, who do you go to get your bank account back, right?
God.
And then there's also the civil asset forfeiture side of it, which is right the other side, and that doesn't happen to us, but that happens to people in a lot of places now who get arrested, and all of a sudden, the state takes their money.
Yes, but that happens to people if they get pulled over and they have a large amount of cash in some states.
Right. Or, there'll been, there's well-publicized examples of like, there'll be some investigation into like, safe deposit boxes. And the next thing the feds have seized all the contents of the safe deposit boxes, and that stuff never gets returned. And so it's this, and this is when Trump says the deep state, the way we would describe it is it's administrative power. It's political power being administered not through legislation, right? So there's no defined law that covers this. It's not through regulation. Right, there's nothing you can't go sue a regulator to fix this. It's not through any kind of court judgment. It's just raw power. It's just raw administrative power. It's the government or politicians just deciding that things are going to be a certain way, and then they just apply pressure until they get it.
So,
well, I mean, like I think he's talking about a private institution, in their methods. So I'm sure government powers, like you said, apply pressure. But at the end of the day, I think what's most scary is that it's not just political parties and political interest. It's like, if the people who own Visa and MasterCard, I mean, I need to know more about the process, of course, but it just seems to me like you're dealing with something that like an entity, a business entity could decide that they no longer want your voice at the table, and they don't want you to be able to live a normal life in the 21st century. And with no government, with no court, can just, hit you with a sledgehammer.
what happens to those 30 tech people that you know?
Start to go into a different field, like try to do something different, and try to get
complete upending of your life.
Yeah, complete upending of your life, and try to change your life. Try to get out of try to get away from the eye of Sauron. Try to get out of whatever zone got you into this, and keep applying for new bank accounts at different banks, and hope that at some point a bank will say, oh, okay, it's okay, we've checked it, it's now all right.
Whoa!
But there's no.
So what do they do with their money? Like, what happens?
You go to cash.
You go to cash.
You can't have a
So where do you put it?
I don't under your mattress.
The California King mattress becoming very popular, probably for a reason.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That is so insane.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if someone has $30 million in the bank and they get debanked,
Diamonds, art, do you, I don't know, go overseas somewhere?
holy shit.
Yeah. And just
Diversify your portfolio, I guess, as Wu-Tang Clan would advise.
like it just happens. And again, it's really, really important. There's no fingerprints. Like there's no person who.
There's no stick above the strings.
Shadow.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It just happened, and we can trace it back because we understand exactly. We know the politicians involved, and we know how the agencies work, and we know how the pressure's applied, and we know that these banks get phone calls and so forth. And so we can loosely we understand the flow of power as it happens. But when you're on the receiving end of this, your specific instance of it, like you can't trace it back, and there's nothing you can do about it.
What are the instances? Like, what is the company? What are they trying to do, and how do they run afoul?
Well, all the crypto startups in the last basically 4 years. So remember the crypto thing got like really, sort of everybody got excited and like NFTs and like all that stuff, and then it just like stopped.
Yeah.
And the reason it stopped is because basically every crypto founder, every crypto startup, they either got debanked personally and forced out of the industry, or their company got debanked and so it couldn't keep operating, or they got prosecuted, charged, or they got threatened with being charged. This is a fun twist. This is a fun little twist. So the SEC sort of has been trying to kill the crypto industry under Biden.
I mean, well, yet again, this is a whole other can of worms. I'm not a huge fan of crypto, and I'm definitely somebody who, if I were to, I would have to do a lot more research in the topic, but I would say that I'm probably a Bitcoin essentialist if I were to get into the crypto space. And I lean towards like a lot of the people that he's talking about here. I would assume, and yet again, this is where I would need to do more research, but a lot of the people he's talking about here, I think, would be rug pullers and bag holders here. So there might have been good reason for them to utilize this tool against those kinds of people. But I mean, I would need to know more. So this definitely falls into, if I was sitting across from him, I'd probably want to ask him what his general opinions are on crypto. And, if scams were running rampant in the crypto space around that time, or his perspective on, what percentage of those cryptocurrencies were fraudulent or, not solvable. I don't know. But yeah, so I'll say this. I if this was the tool they had to go to stop scammers who are creating new cryptos, I understand the reason.
And this has been a big issue for us because we're the biggest crypto startup investor. The SEC can investigate you, they can subpoena you, they can prosecute you, they can do all these things. But they don't have to do any of those things to really damage you. All they have to do is they issue what's called a Wells notice, and the Wells notice is a notification that you may be charged at some point in the future. You're like on notice that you might be doing something wrong, and they might be coming after you at some point in the future.
Oh my God!
Okay, so
terrifying. That's the eye.
The eye of Sauron is on you. Okay, now trying to be a company with a Wells notice doing business with anybody else.
Oh my God!
Right, try to work with a big company, try to get access to a bank, try to do.
So that's when they support DEI initiatives, and
Well, and then the SEC under Biden became a direct application of exactly. So DEI, they did a lot with that, and then ESG, all the ESG stuff, and ESG is a very malleable concept, and they piled all kinds of new requirements into that. So through this process, the SEC could basically just simply dictate what companies do, with no accountability at all. Like there are hearings where they get yelled at, but like nothing changed.
And according to people like Asmongold and others, it's ruining gaming. Well, so yeah, that was my first experience, like, taking Joe Rogan a little more seriously and watching with, I guess, good faith. Like the biggest thing I'd have to say is everyone has a reason for their biases. And he obviously, this person speaking on the show, Mark Anderson. Yeah, this Mark Anderson basically, he's going to be biased towards crypto if he's investing in it and he's hoping to make money off of crypto. I'm not saying that the startups that he was a part of and invested in were scam coins, but that was something that was very, if I remember correctly, very well documented that was going on in the crypto explosion. So I feel like I'd want to hear other people's takes on it, but I will say that the idea that the government slash business has this tool they can use, this like sledgehammer, if you will, this nuclear bomb they can utilize against private citizens is terrifying. I would like to see, I'd like to hear from more people like what they were doing and what was unjust. But I mean, for the most part, you know, I understand why Joe Rogan is so, you know, I've heard for a long time he's a great interviewer, and think that's a great example of it, because he, you know, he didn't offer much pushback. He just like got the story, got the guy to tell the yarn of the story. He pulled it out of the guy. The guy was willing to tell it. So yeah, looking forward to watching more of these. Anyways, thank you so much for coming by Jolie's. Like and subscribe if you can, and see you later.